Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast. Throughout the summer, we've been scouting the top quarterbacks in the 2022 NFL draft class, and we got the 10 that are really receiving the most buzz in the NFL draft scouting community. And so we've compiled our rankings, and we're really excited to break them down with you. Alex, unveil the rankings.
So here they are. If you follow us on Instagram, if you don't, I recommend it. We posted these probably 2 weeks ago by the time this goes live. So most people have already seen them. But for those of you watching the podcast on Instagram, on YouTube, here they are. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'll just list off our rankings now so you have an idea in your head. So mine really quickly, Rattler 1, Howell 2, Carson Strong from Nevada 3, Kedon Slovis 4, Malik Willis 5, Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina 6, Tyler Shough from Texas A&M 7, Matt Corral 8, Desmond Ridder 9, and JT Daniels 10.
And mine are pretty similar, but with a couple differences. We got Rattler and Howell 1 and 2 like Alex, but then I have Slovis 3 and Strong 4, followed by McCall 5, Shough 6, Corral 7, Willis 8, and then Ridder and Daniels to round it out like Alex. Alex, why is Spencer Rattler your QB1 heading into the 2021 season?
All right, so I'll just give you a few quick things as to why he's my QB1. So I think his arm talent, his improvisational ability, and his athletic ability. I think he really has pretty much everything you want to see from a franchise quarterback. Like I mentioned, the arm talent, he's got great arm strength, can chuck it down the field, but he can also put zip on the ball. He can throw from a few different platforms. The improvisational ability, he can run around, make stuff happen when the play breaks down. And then obviously his athletic ability, he can truly make plays with his legs, run the ball 15, 20 yards at a pop when he has to.
Yeah, he has the arm strength, the athleticism, the accuracy, the ability to sense pressure, the ability to read the field, all of those things to be a very good NFL quarterback. And what gives him the potential to really be special at the next level is his improvisational ability, his ability to get out of the pocket with his really twitchy athleticism and make a play either with his legs or by what's really impressive about him is he can just in a quick flick of the wrist launch the ball downfield and get it down to a receiver to get a big gain when other quarterbacks would be taking a sack. So Rattler is a really impressive guy. And the last thing to leave off on him is I really like the growth he had as a redshirt freshman last season where he really had some struggles early in the year. But when you look at his body of work, the second half of the year, it was really good. He had improved. He started making better decisions. He was more accurate. And I think that just shows the next step that he's going to take it by establishing himself as the first overall pick, not just the QB1, but the first overall pick in next year's NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. Definitely our favorite for the first overall pick. And I think you really wrapped it up nicely talking about Rattler. So we'll move on to Howell now. And Howell, I see very similar to Rattler in a lot of ways. I think the arm strength, again, is really impressive. The accuracy might be a little better than Rattler's. But with Howell, I think the athletic ability is good. It's probably better than most people would think. It's not on the level of Spencer Rattler, which is why I have Howell as a close second. We talked about this. They're close in my opinion, but it wasn't a hard decision to put Rattler over Howell.
Yeah, I think they're very close. I really like Howell too, and I think he's really a surefire franchise quarterback as well. He's got the great accuracy and great arm strength. He can make every NFL throw, both in terms of having the arms to get there and putting it in the right place for his receiver. He leads his receivers open to extra yards, great anticipation. He's going to be going into the draft with 3 years of experience against ACC teams at a high level. And the one thing that I really need to see improvement from with him is his ability to sense pressure and get the ball out in time when he's being pressured. He just holds the ball for way too long sometimes and takes a lot of unnecessary sacks that hurt his team. So that's really the main point of focus for him heading into this season. But when you've got that kind of arm strength, that kind of accuracy, you're going to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, the one big weakness, in my opinion, for Howell, the internal clock needs to be sped up a little bit. And I think being able to sense pressure is another thing he could improve on. But, I think those will just come with experience and time. Nothing to really be too worried about. My third quarterback, Carson Strong. We mentioned arm strength for the first two. Carson Strong has even more impressive arm strength. I listened when I gave my scouting report a few months ago now. He's a true gunslinger, is what I said. He has that gunslinger mentality. He's willing to just chuck the ball down the field, and he's accurate with it. He can chuck the ball 60 yards down the field on a dime for a walk-in touchdown to his wide receivers. So that's extremely impressive. Just the decision-making sometimes, because he has that gunslinger mentality, he's not always making the best decisions. Sometimes you'll see him try to force the ball into double coverage, try to fit it into windows that no one really has the capability to do. So he definitely has a learning curve from the mental side of things. Reading defenses, finding the open receiver at times can be a struggle for him. I've definitely seen him miss some guys that were just wide open. But he's definitely a really intriguing prospect. And assuming that he improves on the mental side of things, I think he'll be a lock to go in the first round.
Yeah, when you talk about that deep ball ability, you really just can't emphasize it enough. He has a cannon of an arm, and he can drop it in the bucket from 50 yards out. That's going to be an extremely appealing trait to NFL coaches who want to be able to break the game with a deep bomb at a crucial point. And that's really what he can do. He does need to keep growing as a quarterback, just getting better at reading the field, going through his progressions, making the smart decision. And one thing that does limit him, though, is his athleticism. He's not really the most athletic, so he's going to be more of an in-the-pocket guy, which is why it's crucial that he keeps growing in terms of the nuances of playing quarterback, because he's going to be a pocket passer at the next level. I right now have Kedon Slovis ahead of him as my number 3 guy, because I just think that he's more experienced, more battle-tested than Carson Strong. And right now, if I were to have to pick one to start my NFL team, I'd go with Slovis. What bothers me about Slovis is he took a bit of a step back in 2020. He's a guy who is extremely accurate, a great distributor of the ball, really getting it exactly in the right place on almost every throw in 2019. And then in 2020, there was a dip in accuracy, and there were just a few bizarre interceptions. I'm gonna say that he's gonna return to 2019 form in 2021, and that his 2020 season, which was by no means bad, but it was a little bit of a dip. I'm just going to say that was the product of a weird COVID-affected season that got shortened, and there was less preparation, and I think he's going to be back to 2019 form. So just because I think he's further along in his development as a quarterback and on the finer things like reading the field, I'm going to go with him over Carson Strong right now. But it's really close, and it could flip by draft time, so I'm excited to watch these two.
Yeah, so obviously I have Slovis as my number 4, and Slovis was a hard watch and a hard evaluation for me. One, because of the 2019 to 2020 dip, but just really watching his tape, nothing ever really jumped out to me. I didn't think that, I never thought his arm strength was like super special like the 3 other guys we've mentioned. I don't think he has the greatest athletic ability. And I didn't think he had like the elite accuracy or decision making that a guy like Sam Howell has. So it was hard for me to put him above Carson Strong, and I didn't, just because Strong has that elite arm strength, and to me, Slovis didn't have that elite arm strength. So the lack of not really having anything special, he does everything kind of sort of well. You mentioned that he made some poor decisions in 2020, so I'm kind of up in the air on Slovis. I think you mentioned he has a lot of the finer details kind of, in place. He seems pretty good on those things, but I'm up in the air with Slovis, and I wouldn't be surprised if he drops below my number 4 quarterback by the time this 2021 season is all wrapped up.
Yeah, I think I'm higher than you on Slovis. I think he could go and have a Matt Ryan type career where there's nothing, no specific trait that wows you. But if he were to return to 2019 form, I'd be confident in that projection, because he did everything really well that season. My number 5 quarterback is Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. This is a guy you're seeing a lot lower in other lists, but frankly, I disagree. I think he has round 1 potential. He's first of all, a great athlete. When he runs with his legs, he can pick up a lot of yards. He's quick, good burst, so even some elusiveness to make defenders miss. And other than that, he's got a good arm strength. I've seen people question it. It's not elite by any means, but I think it's definitely good enough to make every NFL throw. And he's very accurate. So this is a guy who, like Slovis, doesn't have a special trait, won't really be a top end NFL quarterback. His ceiling is capped below that, but I really like how he led that offense as a true freshman to such a good record and displayed great accuracy for that inexperience. I have him a couple slots below Slovis because the things that are going to limit him are unfortunately going to stay the same, is that his level of competition is low and that offensive scheme just doesn't ask much of him. It's a lot of first reads and not having to move on through his progression. So it's pretty simplistic, and it'll be a big adjustment to the NFL. Grayson McCall might not even declare in 2022. He was only a redshirt freshman last year, so he'd be going off 2 years of play. But I think at some point down the road, he's going to be a first-round pick and could definitely be a franchise quarterback in the next level.
Yeah, I'm not going to really repeat a lot of the things that you said about McCall. Obviously, I have him sixth. I have Malik Willis ahead of him, which I'll get to in a second. Just to wrap up McCall, though, I think his athletic ability is something impressive. It's not elite in any form, but it's very good. And I think he's got good arm strength. Like you said, this was his first season starting at quarterback as a freshman. So there's definitely some things that he has to learn on the mental side of the game, some decision making. I definitely like to see improved, but that's going to come with time. Like you said, the level of competition is going to hold him back. But, we saw with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson went second overall. So if you look that good, like as good as Zach Wilson did, the level of competition really isn't going to hurt you too much in the grand scheme of things. I don't think McCall is that caliber, but, I think the level of competition is a little bit overrated when scouting quarterbacks, because I think if they can do a lot of things well, most of it honestly doesn't have to do with level of competition. Decision-making, that doesn't really have to do with level of competition. Anticipation doesn't really have to do with level of competition. That's stuff that you're going to have regardless, or not have regardless. So I think we're pretty similar on McCall. I just like Willis more than I like McCall. So for Willis, to me, I hate to throw out this comparison. I mentioned it in our previous episode, which was question and answer episode. He reminds me of Michael Vick when Vick played for the Eagles. He is very athletic. I love his running ability, but he has a great arm as well. And he's a better passer than Lamar Jackson was coming out, and I was not high on Lamar Jackson because of that, because he really struggled throwing the football, throwing accurately. I think Willis is a better thrower of the football. He has a much stronger arm. And I think he's more accurate and makes better decisions than Lamar did when Lamar declared. And I think Willis, with another year under his belt, will continue to improve on those things that he struggles with passing wise. And I'm going to be honest, I almost put him as my fourth quarterback because I really see that much in him. I'm kind of leaning towards, from the scouting perspective, of if a guy has a really impressive trait, whether it's, amazing arm strength or really good athletic ability like Malik Willis does, and he does everything else fairly well, I think, in the right offensive system, he can be a star just because of his athletic ability and his arm strength. Obviously, you're quite a bit lower on him than I am, so why don't you put in your side of things?
I mean, I love his athleticism and his arm strength just as much as you do. But being a quarterback is being a passer before all else. Don't get me wrong. It's great to be able to extend the play with your legs. That's extremely valuable and important. And it can get a young quarterback the chance to be able to work through some of the other issues if they can really salvage some plays with their legs. However, right now, Malik Willis just is not the passer that he needs to be to even be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's just his deep ball is just pretty erratic. He misses some guys short or in the intermediate range. He doesn't really have to go through progressions. He's really just not far in his development as a passer. I will like him if he makes that big step forward, but right now it's not there enough for me to put him in my top 5. I have him down at 8, and I have 2 guys ahead of him. The first of which is Tyler Shough. Do you have anything left to say about Willis, or can I get into Shough and explain why I have him higher?
I think I just want to point out pretty much where we differ on Willis. I think we see pretty much the same thing. I'm just banking on him improving his play as a true passing quarterback, and you're not willing to bank on that. So I think that's pretty much where we differ in our evaluation of Willis, and that's pretty much what it can come down to for a lot of quarterbacks. So
Yeah.
now we can talk about Shough.
Yeah, I just think Willis would need a massive improvement. But we've seen quarterbacks take that huge jump, and if he does, he's definitely a prospect that I'll like a lot. He's just not there yet right now. Tyler Shough is a really interesting guy, and I mean, you're going to start seeing the theme in these guys that at this point in the ranking where they could end up being really good prospects, or they could really not because they're not there yet, but they have the potential to be. Tyler Shough is exactly like that. He actually wasn't even the full-time starter all year at Oregon. He ended up having to split snaps towards the end of the season and got a minority of snaps in the Fiesta Bowl. So why am I that high on him? I just think that the combination of traits he has as a pure passer and as an athlete is really impressive. He's got a good arm strength to make all the throws. He has really good flashes of accuracy and ball placement. And he's really athletic. The way he gets to gather himself to make defenders miss in open space at 6'5" is extremely rare. Obviously, Shough's biggest question is, first of all, he needs to establish himself as a full-time starter and as a good college quarterback before we can talk about him as a high NFL draft prospect. I think he will, and I think Oregon has really brought down quarterbacks in the past. Justin Herbert obviously performed well there, but look what he did in his first season in the NFL. He wasn't used correctly. He wasn't truly unleashed at Oregon. I think Shough is going to go to Texas Tech, and in that air raid offense, he's going to flourish. He's going to be able to throw the ball really deep, accumulate great passing numbers, obviously, become more accurate as he has more confidence as their full-time quarterback one. And the reason why he really wasn't that quarterback one is he has his one biggest weakness is his failure to see second-level defenders, and he throws interceptions to them. I think that's something with an offseason of work of getting into the tape and being able to get into the season with a new supporting cast, new coaching staff. He'll be able to work that out of him. It's a big projection to say that he's going to end up being a first-round pick, and it might not come until the following year in 2023. But I just like him better I think he's a more natural passer, and he's just even farther along than Willis as a passer, despite not being a full-time starter. Then that's why I have him ahead of Willis.
Yeah, I think I have to agree he's further along as a passer than Willis. But, just to go back to Willis for a second, it's the rushing ability which is why I have him ahead of Shough. But watching Shough, obviously it was a hard eval because he wasn't the full-time starter. Like that kind of leaves me of why. He showed flashes of brilliance, but he also, similar to the next guy that we'll talk about, showed flashes of just being really inconsistent. There were a few plays where it was just like, why would you throw that ball? I wrote down like some boneheaded decisions. So that was really hard for me. But he's another guy where if he improves in his new situation in Texas Tech, he's a guy that could definitely fly up my board as well. And moving to our next guy, similar to Shough in some ways, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. This is a guy that's just all over the place. There were quite a few games this year where he truly looked like a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
He has pretty much everything you want. He's got the arm strength, the arm talent, the accuracy, the athletic ability. However, his game against Arkansas may have been one of the worst tapes that I have watched, especially from a quarterback that's considered to be near the top of his class. It was
worse than guys who have gone undrafted in the last couple of years.
It was awful. Like, I don't know what else to say. Six interceptions.
Yes.
It was just throw after throw. Why would you throw that ball? Why would you throw that ball? Why would you throw that ball? And it wasn't the same mistake. It was, he threw into double coverage. He missed the floating linebacker sitting right underneath. He didn't see that cornerback sitting right next to his wide receiver. He completely missed on the throw. So it was just like, what are you doing? Are you trying to do too much? I don't know. So yes, he has that top talent, but that game, and there was another game where he threw 5 picks.
LSU.
LSU, it was awful.
Yeah, for me, it's really frustrating because I think he would be a top 10 talent without those 2 games. As you said, I'm not going to reiterate it. He has everything from an athletic standpoint and from just playing the game of quarterback, getting the ball where it needs to be on time, leading the receiver open. He does all of those things. However, those 2 games, 11 interceptions in 2 games against Arkansas and LSU, where he just makes every possible poor decision and inability to read coverage that you could possibly make as a quarterback. And that's why I'm pretty low on him compared to others, because let's say even he ends up not having any games like that, I'm worried that when he goes against NFL defenses that rattle him, he'll just not be able to respond, because this has to be an instance to me of he threw the first pick, the second pick, and it unraveled in his head. He was scared on the field. You can see it. Like he doesn't throw the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth interception if he's not just lost confidence and lost his ability to play quarterback in that game almost. I'm being harsh, but that's really how it was. And so, but if you were to overcome that completely, stay clean on the interceptions and show the ability to throw an interception or 2 and get back into the game, play at a high level, stay cool mentally, and beat a quality SEC team despite that, then I can regain confidence in him as an NFL prospect. Why do I still have him ahead of Malik Willis? Because he's just that much better of a passer right now. I think the question mark of Willis taking the massive step forward that he needs to take in order to be a franchise quarterback in the next level as a passer is an even bigger question mark than whether or not Corral can eliminate that side of his game where he threw so many interceptions in 2 games.
Yeah, and we'll move on to our last 2. We have in the same order, Desmond Ridder and JT Daniels. And before anyone freaks out, we haven't been able to watch all of the guys. I know there's a few guys that come to mind that probably could be around that 8, 9, 10 range. De'Ara King, maybe. Phil Jurkovec.
Yeah. Well, let's just stay focused on these. We picked the 10 guys that are really considered the highest right now, and we're going 10 deep. That goes far in the NFL draft. So who's your 9th quarterback? Our 9th quarterback, actually.
Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, and he's got the athletic ability. I just don't see it as a passer. I don't see arm strength. I don't really see accuracy. It just, if the name of the quarterback game was running, he'd be up there. But because it's a quarterback and it's passing, he doesn't have it, and I don't see any potential for him to get better.
So why do you see that potential in Willis but not Ridder?
The arm strength from Willis, I see flashes of being accurate, being able to read defenses when he's asked to. I just see a lot more potential in Willis than I do in Ridder. I don't see any of that from Ridder.
For me, I think Ridder and Willis are at a pretty similar low level as passers. Ridder is actually even worse. I agree with you. Ridder, when he's throwing deep, it can go anywhere. And in the NFL, that's an even bigger issue, because when you have guys who on defense who are smarter and who are faster, they'll be getting to that ball to pick it off at a higher rate than the American Athletic Conference defenses are right now. And the thing that really put him behind Willis for me mainly is that his running ability, which is high level, it's not special like Willis's. It's athletic, it's smooth, it's very productive. It's not explosive like Willis. So that's what kept him behind Willis for me.
And I think that's a great point. I hate to keep going back to Willis, but the reason I have Willis so high is because his rushing ability is truly near elite, and Ridder is not. If Willis was equal to Ridder in athletic and rushing ability, then Willis would be a lot lower on my board.
Yeah.
So I think now we'll round out with the 10th and final quarterback we scouted, JT Daniels, and it's just, I don't know.
I can take this one.
It's not impressive.
I don't see it. The people who are putting him in the top 10 of their mock drafts, did you watch? I don't want to be disrespectful, but did you watch the same quarterback that I watched? To me, JT Daniels, first of all, has poor physical and athletic traits. He's not that big. His arm strength is weak. His passes deep hang in the air. They don't get to where they need to be. He's underthrowing receivers rather than throwing them open, leaving some touchdowns on the field. And he's not athletic. He's not going to be able to extend the play, escape pressure, get yards with his legs. He can't do that either. So then I assume he would be able to go through progressions, throw very accurately, and be a really, really good distributor of the ball if he's overcoming these poor athletic and physical traits. But that's not the case either. So I think the best he can be in the NFL is a backup quarterback, but he actually has a lot of development left to do as a passer to even get there, because the accuracy is not great. The ability to go through progressions is not great. The reading coverage is not great. So he doesn't really have the mental side or the physical side or the athletic side. So I don't get it. For me right now, he has an undrafted grade. I wouldn't be drafting JT Daniels if he came out at this level. I assume he'll improve a bit, but he's not getting anything better than a day 3 grade from me regardless. I don't understand the hype on JT Daniels as much as I don't really like Ridder. There's a gap between Ridder and Daniels.
Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely think there'd be quite a few quarterbacks to fit between Ridder and Daniels that we just haven't scouted yet. I
agree.
Derek King is a guy that I watched after putting together this list. I don't know exactly where I would want him, but he would definitely be ahead of Daniels.
Yeah, I watched him too, and I would have him between Ridder and Daniels.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll mention about Daniels that you didn't is he, as bad, I feel bad saying this, but as poorly as he can play with a clean pocket, when he has pass rushers in his face, it's even worse. Yeah. He gets completely flustered, and I did not see one good throw when there were pass rushers in his face.
Yeah, I do want to say we're really bashing him in terms of his projection to the NFL. I still think he can be a solid college quarterback, and Georgia can have a good season with him. I just don't think he translates to the NFL whatsoever, and he's not even there as a pure passer on the mental side and in terms of accuracy to be able to overcome his physical and athletic traits to come anywhere near sniffing a starting lineup in the NFL right now.
Yeah, totally. And I think that pretty much wraps up our summer preseason quarterback rankings. And again, this is specifically for quarterbacks that are eligible for the 2022 NFL draft. So for those of you asking, DJ Ugalele, I've definitely mispronounced that, from Clemson. He's not eligible for the 2022 NFL draft. That's why he's not on the list. Again, just draft eligible guys. And Kosta, if you don't have anything to say, I think we'll just wrap this podcast up.
Yeah. One guy that's not on here, Emory Jones, is because he just didn't play much with Kyle Trask there last year. I've seen him being put with some of these guys. It's just there's no tape on him. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming to watch, and it's going to be really exciting tracking these quarterbacks. And that these standings will be changing. There's so much football left, a full season for them to improve or regress or stay the same. I think that this will be changing a lot. This is just where it stands with them right now.
Yep. And with that said, thanks for watching, and we'll be back again soon with another podcast.